welcome back to Sense and Sensitivity, where I share content all about my journey with rosacea and sensitive skin. Today I want to give you a little background on my history with rosacea and my life with sensitive skin up till now. So I've always had sensitive skin and some food allergies. As a kid, if I ate certain foods, I would break out in rashes and hives, and certain materials and metals would give me skin rashes. So I've always known that I had skin that was on the more sensitive side, but definitely nothing like the past few years living with rosacea have been. So in 2016, when I was in my late 20s and going through graduate school, my skin started acting up more and being more and more sensitive. And I'm talking the skin specifically on my face. So there were mornings where I'd wake up, and especially in this area, I'd be really red and puffy. Now, I was really under a lot of stress at that time because I was in graduate school and I had also moved. So I kept chalking the irritation up to being stressed, not sleeping enough, a change in environment, the water quality and things like that. But it kept happening and my skin was feeling more and more uncomfortable. I know now that it was the beginning of my rosacea skin barrier dysfunction, but at the time I just thought the different things in my life were making me more sensitive for a short period of time. Then in 2018, after taking a relaxing hot bath, which I used to do all the time, I came out of the bath to find that I had huge swollen welts across both of my cheeks. And I'm going to insert a picture so you can see what I'm talking about. I totally freaked out and I went to the ER because I didn't know what was happening and I was worried I was having an allergic reaction to something. When I got to the ER, they weren't too concerned, but told me that maybe I had contact dermatitis and to go home and take some allergy pills and use some hydrocortisone and not touch my skin at all for at least a week. No washing, no moisturizing, no sunblock. So I was going to work that week wearing a hat and feeling really, really insecure about myself. And I will tell you, I cried that whole first weekend. I just laid in bed and cried. I was so bummed out because you feel so out of control when, against your best intentions, something goes wrong with your body, and it feels like there's nothing you can do. So I definitely know what it feels like. I don't know if any of you guys know what I'm talking about, but if you do, know that I have been right there with you, crying and feeling like there was nothing I could do to improve my situation. After my skin calmed down, after about a week, I went to see a dermatologist finally, and that was the first time in my whole life that I'd ever been to a dermatologist. That's when they gave me the official diagnosis of rosacea. I was explaining to her how for the past few years I'd been waking up with red skin, bumps, burning sensation, especially along here, and she took one look at me and was like, yeah, you have rosacea. And it was a huge moment for me because while on the one hand, after she explained the condition to me and explained that it was something lifelong generally and that I would be managing for the rest of my life, and that was really upsetting to hear. On the other hand, it really helped me feel like finally there's something I can do about this. I'm not just in the dark picking and choosing things and hoping if they work. I can follow a regimen and I can get help from a medical professional to guide me on this journey and really understand what the best thing to do for my skin is going to be. So like I've said in all my videos so far, working with a medical doctor is the best thing I've ever done. And I don't see her very often, but it really helped put me on the right path. So during that time, I also had a lot of digestive issues. And like I mentioned at the beginning, I always had food allergies growing up. So I've always had to avoid seafood and quinoa. And there are a couple other things that I don't really like or that I don't digest well, like onions. But from about 2016 on, I was having lots of problems. I was always feeling super bloated. And it started getting to the point where no matter what I ate, I was feeling sick. And if you haven't heard this before, doctors have come to find that a lot of times people with rosacea have digestive issues and they go hand in hand. So after meeting with my dermatologist, I also made an appointment with the gastroenterologist and an acupuncturist. After working with them and explaining all the things I was going through, the gastroenterologist had me take a test and go on the low FODMAP diet. So basically that meant I had to eliminate a lot of different foods, and they give you a list because the components that those foods break down into can irritate your system in different ways depending on what imbalances you have. So going through that and then slowly reintroducing things back into my diet and journaling about what made me feel fine and what didn't really helped. It was a really, really hard practice. I lost a lot of weight during that time. I couldn't really eat out with friends, so it was isolating in a lot of ways, but I lived through it and I'm so much better for it. It took about 3 months to do all the reintroductions properly, but I've come to find that most foods don't irritate me, and the ones that do are more or less easy to avoid. So in addition to seafood and quinoa, like I already mentioned, we found that gluten was a huge trigger for me. This is something you might hear from other people. There is sort of a fad going around of avoiding gluten, but in my situation, the GI doctor said that it's something I need to avoid. And when I spoke about it with my acupuncturist, she also agreed that typically when they see people with digestive issues and redness in their skin, gluten can be one of the number one factors that are irritating you. And friends, I can tell you that I feel 100% better 2 years later after going through this journey of getting my rosacea diagnosis and getting my digestive issues under control. So just to give you a little bit more information on my specific diagnosis, I was diagnosed with SIBO, which is small intestinal bacterial overgrowth. So food particles were irritating the bacteria in my digestive system because there was an overgrowth or an imbalance of bacteria. I'm going to have another episode all about food and rosacea and supplements, but for now, let me just say that in my case, taking probiotics was the last thing I should have been doing. And this again goes back to my point about working with medical professionals. We all hear about how great probiotics are for the system, so I figured my stomach hurts, I'm bloated, and my skin is irritated, and everything I read online says that probiotics solve all of those problems. So I was taking probiotics every day. Guess what? When you have SIBO, you have an overgrowth of bacteria. So even introducing good bacteria, like from probiotics, plays into that overgrowth, which is an imbalance. And that was exactly what was irritating my system to begin with. Lastly, let's talk a little bit about the specifics of my rosacea diagnosis. So I have subtypes 1 and 2, which means I get redness and broken capillaries, and I'll show you a close-up of my skin in a minute. But I also get the redness, the bumpy skin. Also for me, a huge struggle is the burning sensation that my skin has sometimes. And when I talk to you more about my skincare routine in the future, I'll show some products that have really helped me manage that, but that was one of the first things I noticed was that burning, tingling sensation. For me, it especially happens here. And that's also kind of my spider sense now. When I start getting that, I know something's irritating me, and it's my little signal to start being aware and be careful and figure out what might be irritating me and make the change if I can. So there are different factors that play into rosacea, not only in exacerbating or worsening the condition, but also just in what's the initial thing. Dermatologists have told me that it's super common for females, especially right around their early 30s, which I was diagnosed at 30 years old, to develop rosacea. So I guess I'm just one of the typical candidates. So in my case, my dermatologist believes that my rosacea is caused by a dysfunction in my skin barrier. And I think that's the case for a lot of people. I have read that there is some building evidence that there might be a type of mite, they're called Demodex mites, that play a role in the dysfunction. I'm not sure if that's something that's part of the issue for me or not. My dermatologist hasn't said that to me, but I know that it's a dysfunction in my barrier. And so immediately to me that means baby my skin, protect it at all costs, because it can't do a good enough job on its own like for other people it can. Now let's talk a little bit about medication. I don't currently, and I've never used the prescription medication that my doctor has prescribed to me for my rosacea. I've been prescribed both metronidazole and Soolantra. For me, it's just a personal choice. My doctor did explain that since rosacea is a lifelong condition, the medications are also something that need to be used for the rest of my life. And I think that for me, what I've decided is I'm still on a journey to figure out what changes I can make in my own life, meaning my lifestyle choices, my food, my environmental choices, and my skincare choices that can help mitigate my rosacea and keep me in what I call my maintenance zone. But that's not to say that I won't at some point in the future try the medications and see how they might add supplemental benefits. It's just that right now I want to see how I can manage it just by making these daily changes in my life. I'm going to link a video below by a skincare developer named Veronique. She started her skincare line because she was diagnosed with rosacea and wasn't having a positive outcome from the prescriptions she was being given by her doctor. I've used a few of her products. They're very, very expensive, but I think this video has a lot of good information about the role that prescription drugs play in rosacea management and kind of what her alternative thoughts are. Again, I don't have a hard stance on the medication. I'm not opposed to it. I just haven't used them yet. But again, I might use them in the future, and I have the prescriptions in my cabinet right now. So I'm going to give you a close-up of my skin so you can see a little bit of the rosacea. I don't have any makeup or anything covering my skin right now, and I'd say I'm having a pretty good or pretty balanced day today. There are a few bumps, and I have some broken capillaries that are never going to go away unless I do laser. But yeah, this is after 2 years of working on my skin, and you saw my before pictures from the worst day I had, so you can see for yourself. As you can see, I've got some redness and I have a broken capillary here. I have broken capillaries here and all across here too. And I've got a little bumpy patch here today, but not too bad. I'm feeling pretty happy today. Alright friends, I hope you enjoyed today's video and that it gave you a little bit more information about who I am and where I'm coming from in hosting this channel, providing all this content about rosacea and sensitive skin. Leave your comments below and don't forget to like and subscribe so you can stay tuned for all my future content. Thanks and talk soon.